Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we continue reading from the Bhagavad-Gita as it is. Chapter 18, the perfection of renunciation. Text number 61. īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ hṛd-deśe Arjuna tiṣṭhati bhrāmayan sarva-bhūtāni yantrārūḍhāni māyayā īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ hṛd-deśe Arjuna tiṣṭhati bhrāmayan sarva-bhūtāni yantrārūḍhāni māyayā īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ hṛd-deśe Arjuna tiṣṭhati bhrāmayan sarva-bhūtāni yantrārūḍhāni māyayā īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ hṛd-deśe Arjuna tiṣṭhati. You want this book? Sarva-bhūtāni yantrārūḍhāni māyayā īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ hṛd-deśe Arjuna tiṣṭhati bhrāmayan sarva-bhūtāni yantrārūḍhāni māyayā
īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ
īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ hṛd-deśe Arjuna tiṣṭhati bhrāmayan sarva-bhūtāni yantrārūḍhāni māyayā īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ hṛd-deśe Arjuna tiṣṭhati bhrāmayan sarva-bhūtāni yantrārūḍhāni māyayā
īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ
īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ hṛd-deśe Arjuna tiṣṭhati bhrāmayan sarva-bhūtāni yantrārūḍhāni māyayā īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ hṛd-deśe Arjuna tiṣṭhati bhrāmayan sarva-bhūtāni yantrārūḍhāni māyayā. Sit down here. īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ hṛd-deśe Arjuna tiṣṭhati bhrāmayan sarva-bhūtāni yantrārūḍhāni māyayā īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ hṛd-deśe Arjuna tiṣṭhati bhrāmayan sarva-bhūtāni yantrārūḍhāni māyayā
īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ
īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ hṛd-deśe Arjuna tiṣṭhati bhrāmayan sarva-bhūtāni yantrārūḍhāni māyayā.
Word for word meaning. īśvaraḥ, the Supreme Lord. sarva-bhūtānāṁ, of all living entities. hṛd-deśe, in the location of the heart. Arjuna, O Arjuna. tiṣṭhati, resides. Bhrāmayan, causing to travel. Sarva-bhūtāni, all living entities. Yantra, a machine. ārūḍhani, being placed. Māyayā, under the spell of material energy. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada K. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Everybody please repeat. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Purport. Arjuna was not the supreme knower, and his decision to fight or not to fight was confined to his limited discretion. Lord Krishna instructed that the individual is not all in all. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, or He Himself, Krishna, as the localized Super Soul, sits in the heart, directing the living being. Again, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or He Himself, Krishna, as the localized Super Soul, sits in the heart, directing the living being. After changing bodies, the living entity forgets his past deeds. But the Super Soul, as the knower of the past, present, and future, remains the witness of all his activities. Therefore, all the activities of living entities are directed by this Super Soul. The living entity gets what he deserves and is carried by the material body, which is created in the material energy under the direction of the Super Soul. As soon as a living entity is placed in a particular type of body, he has to work under the spell of that bodily situation. A person seated in a high-speed motor car goes faster than one seated in a slower car, though the living entities, the drivers, may be the same. Similarly, by the order of the Supreme Soul, material nature fashions a particular type of body to a particular type of living entity, so that he may work according to his past desires. The living entity is not independent. One should not think himself independent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The individual is always under the Lord's control. Therefore, one's duty is to surrender, and that is the injunction of the next verse. īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ hṛd-deśe Arjuna tiṣṭhati bhrāmayan sarva-bhūtāni yantrārūḍhāni māyayā. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. The living beings, moving and non-moving, who are in the material world, are under the jurisdiction of the material energy. Of course, those who are conditioned, they are under the modes of material nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. However, there are also living beings in the material world who are considered as liberated souls. Nityam mukta or jivan mukta. Jivan mukta is not the same as jivan or nitya baddha. Most of the living beings in the material world are under the jurisdictions of the material energy because they are covered up in illusion, understanding or misunderstanding that the body is the self. But the living entity is separate from the material body. The living beings are spiritual by nature, and the body that they acquired, those who are conditioned, are made of material elements, and therefore they don't mix together. And the unfortunate tendency of the living beings, they suffer. And this is due to the contaminated coverings of the material energy to the living beings. The living beings are originally has the same nature as the Supreme Lord, being full of knowledge, bliss, and eternity. And they're wandering from different species of life, birth after birth. You're going through the cycle of repeated birth and death, sometimes as a demigod, sometimes as a king, sometimes as poor, sometimes as very intelligent, sometimes as an animal, sometimes as a reptile, sometimes as a plant, sometimes as an insect. However, those who are given the facilities of having human form of life, they are again given the opportunity to revive their original Krishna consciousness. So much so that with the Super Soul's direction, he says here, directing the wanderings of the living entities. The Super Soul is localized. Localized means he is present everywhere. It's like the sun also. The sun rises at a certain time every day in a particular place, but then after some time in a different place, the sun also will rise up, seemingly, but the sun is always there. It's only due to our senses which fails us. Our senses are imperfect. This is one of the imperfections of the living beings. senses are imperfect, tendency to cheat, tendency to commit mistake, and tendency to be in illusion. So, the living beings are wandering in different species of life, birth after birth. However, the Super Soul, as Srila Prabhupada says here, and in the form of the human form of life, we are given this opportunity and privilege to revive our original Krishna consciousness, because in this form of life we'll be able to perceive the Super Soul. We can be able to understand that the Super Soul is there. In other species of life, it's not possible. Prabhupada was once asked, can an ordinary layman with his naked eye will be able to see the Super Soul? Prabhupada says, yes, provided that you're able to control your senses, control your mind, be peaceful, then you'll be able to hear the dictations of the Supreme Lord. But with our naked eye, the Prabhupada says, you cannot. You can perceive that the Super Soul is there, but with the naked eye, not an ordinary layman can really understand that if he meets Lord Vishnu, he'll be able to understand that that is God. It's like 5,000 years ago, when Lord Krishna was present on this planet, not everyone can see that he is the Supreme Personality of God. They can see, but they don't have realization, they don't understand. Like Kamsa. Kamsa also is always thinking of Krishna, but he doesn't have that inclination to understand or see or realize that the Supreme Lord is there. So, what to say of understanding the Super Soul? What to say of the Super Soul within one's heart? He is our ever well-wisher. He is our best friend. He never leaves us alone, or is always there with us. He never left us. He's always with us, irregardless of what position or what form of life we acquired due to the qualities that we acquired and the activities that we perform. He's always with us. Where can you find such a personality like that? And never gave up on us. Never gave up. Irregardless, even if you don't want to follow him. The Super Soul gives us direction how to proceed, to go back home, back to Godhead, back to our original habitat, where there is no anxiety, full of bliss, knowledge, and eternal life. So as long as we are in this material world, the Supreme Lord will always be there with us, or yes, within our heart, birth after birth after birth. But He's not the same like us. He is beyond the modes of material nature. He's the Supreme Absolute Truth. He cannot be covered up. And that's why Prabhupada says He remembers everything all the time. He's eternal. He's primeval. He doesn't change. That's why he remembers everything, because he doesn't change. Unlike us, every second we change. And according to medical science, we change our body every 12 years. How old are you, Chaitanya? 9. So 3 years from now, you've changed all the molecular everything in your body since when you took birth. All the atoms are well, muscles and everything, the bones, everything different. And then after 12 years, you're gonna be a different person again. Age 24. How old are you, Prabhu?
14.
14. Yeah. And then after 12 years, that means 36 years, your body is completely different. Even though every second our body is changing. However, the living entity within the body remains the same. And the super soul also remains the same. But the difference is that we don't realize that we're not the body. We don't realize that we are completely aloof. Cannot mix. Just like Prabhupada says, the oil and water, you cannot mix it, even though they're in the same container. So the body that we have right now has been acquired due to our desires in the previous lifetimes. And also at the time of death, he says, Yam yam bhapi smaran bhavam jajanti anti kalevaram. Whatever you're thinking at the time of death, whatever your thoughts are, that will determine your next life. And whatever you're thinking at the time of death, you are also already thinking that day after day after day. Which means whatever you're doing every day will determine what you're going to think at the time of death. And then the super soul is there again. Never, never leave us, even at the time of death. But then it's very difficult for those whose senses are uncontrolled, whose minds are very flickering. It's very difficult to hear the dictations of the super soul. And the dictations of the super soul is always, follow me. I will lead you to the place where you will never take birth again. A place where there is no anxiety. Vaikuntha, Parabhyom, in the spiritual sky. But the living entities doesn't want to follow. Doesn't want to follow the dictations of the super soul. Very stubborn. Very difficult to be convinced. Again, because of the misidentification of the body as the self. So we change our body birth after birth. And because we're changing our bodies, we are forgetful. We cannot even remember. Well, I cannot even remember what I was doing exactly at this time, let's say 10 days ago, unless I'm a pujari. Then I will remember that I'm preparing the bhoga to be offered. Otherwise, right? Very difficult. Of course, you may be difficult to remember what kind of bhoga or offering that you offered. But definitely you know if you do the artik, oh yeah, the incense or the ghee lamp, you'll remember all of those. But highly impossible. Even when you have dreamt 3 nights ago. Very difficult to remember. So, however, the super soul is always there, and he remembers everything though. He remembers past, present, and the future. He knows exactly where will we end up, provided also that we follow him. But then what determines where will we end up our next life will be determined from our decision. If we're able to hear the dictations of the super soul, the super soul is the witness. Yes, he is the witness of everything. Somehow or other, we're not able to understand this thing. The super soul is present in everyone's heart. He knows everyone inside out. But for us, we cannot even understand who we are. What a big difference, isn't it? The super soul knows even what the dog is doing near that store in MBT, opposite MBT, those puppies. Right? There are a few puppies there. And the super know what the puppy ate yesterday, or who gave some prasad to the dog, to the puppy. But the dog will forget whoever gave him or her food. So yes, he is the knower of the past, present, and the future, and he remains the witness of all of our activities. He never forgets. He always remembers. So, however, what is more important now, at the present, is right now. Right now, this is most important. Forget the past. No need to bring back the past. I was just reading, there are different, for the materialists, they have these formulas how to remain happy. One of the statements written there is forget the past. Don't delve on the past. Always look forward. So yes, and that's true. We cannot buy back the past even for a boatload of gold. It's not possible. It's done. It's the past. So we should look forward and learn how to depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Somehow or other, the living entities, even though we are in this material form, we're given this opportunity to revive our Krishna consciousness once again, because it says that this material body in the human platform is the best vehicle from which one can cross over the ocean of material sufferings, miseries. The material world is compared to a forest of material enjoyment. It's a forest, but there's a lot of wild animals in the forest. You want to enjoy, or the person, this is in the Srimad Bhagavatam, a person will go to the forest to gather some items by which he can be able to sell in the marketplace. But then, going there, you're taking the risk, and you can be attacked by wild animals, and you may not be able to get out. So similarly, in human form, we're given a chance, even though, yes, it's very difficult to overcome the material energy. Daivihi isi gunamayi mama maya duratjaya mam ebai prapajante mayami tantarantite It is very difficult to overcome this divine energy of mind. But anyone who surrenders or understands the nature that the Supreme Lord is the one who is directing all the activities, then he can get out of the spell of Maya. Māyayā. Having material body means tendency to be illusion. Maya. This material energy, this form that we have, is the result of previous activities or desires. And we can be in illusion again and again and again that we are the body. So we should have that understanding that I should get out of this spell. I said, Prabhupada used the words spell. He has to work under the spell of that bodily situation. Spell means like some kind of trick or illusion. Spell, some magic, incantation. Hypnotize, something like that. When you're hypnotized, you are just following the dictation of the person who hypnotized you. And you are doing it beyond your comprehension. You like became a slave of that person who hypnotized you. So the living entities, they were hypnotized by the material energy. And this is the duty of the material energy, to hypnotize us, to put us into illusion, to put us into spell, to think something that which is not, that we are that. So, as soon as the living entity is placed in a particular type of body, he has to work under the spell of that bodily situation. It's the same person who travels, who goes birth after birth to different species of life. And it says in the Bhagavad-Gita that the living entity is compared to the passenger of a chariot. Intelligence is the driver. The rein is the mind. And the senses are the horses. And the living entity, the jivas, they are compared to the passengers of that particular body that they acquired. And he cannot get out. As Prabhupada says, we have to make the best out of this bad bargain. It's a bargain, but it's not good bargain. Like when you go shop, it's like in America, Black Friday just finished. Black Friday means like Christmas is coming, right? Like almost 1 month before Christmas. And so there's like a big sale on that day. And almost like, the things that you're wishing to buy the whole year long, and that day is a big sale. 50% off. Even 75% off. Right? But you don't need it also, but you just, because it's on sale, so you want to buy it. But then you will give them as gifts. Okay, fine. It's a bad bargain, actually, if you're buying it for yourself, because you have so many things that you have already, and still you want to buy something which is going to be unused. So this body is a bad bargain. We cannot do anything about it. Once you realize that you're not this body, then you'll understand it is a bad bargain. But if you don't realize, then you try to beautify yourself. When you have a gray hair, you start to make a tint to be black. Or those who have money, then they will have a facelift. It's like you don't see movie stars getting old, isn't it? Is that, they always seems to be looking young, even after 60 years in the show business. Still like very young because they made facelift, all these things. That is illusion. They try to polish the cage, but they forget to feed the bird. You're having a golden cage. You have a bird inside, but they just polish the cage because it's gold, looking nice. But then you forget to feed the bird inside. That means we miss the goal of understanding that this human form of life is meant for self-realization. Self-realization means understanding who we are, understanding the Creator, the Supreme Lord, who is the Father of everyone. What is my relationship to Him? What is my duty towards Him? How to get out of this material world. So, yes. But the Super Soul is always there to remind us our duty, especially in the human form of life. Super Soul. Because he knows, the Super Soul knows what's going on with the living entity. So whatever the living entity's desires are, then the Super Soul, as a witness, fulfill all those desires. And then who made it possible for those desires to be fulfilled? Because the Super Soul is the witness, then the material energy provides. Material energy provides our body. If we qualified, if we deserve, according to our desires, then it'll be fulfilled. So yes, the living entity is not independent, Prabhupada says here. He is not independent. That means he has to depend on somebody who is very dependable. And none other than the Supreme Lord. If there is anyone, Prabhupada says, don't depend on me, because I may also disappoint you. You depend on Lord Krishna, because he is the most dependable person. But then when Prabhupada says like that, he is just being humble. We also should depend on our spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada. Right? Who else are you going to depend upon? Even your best friend will disappoint you. But our Guru, our spiritual master, and Srila Prabhupada, he will never disappoint us. Prabhupada was once asked, conversation, Saswarup Damodar. Swarup Damodar. Today is his Vyasa Puja, right? So His Holiness Bhakti Sarup Damodar Maharaj asked Prabhupada, but Srila Prabhupada, the living entities, the Jiva Atma within thee, and the Paramatma within, why the living entities suffering? Even the Paramatma is directing the living entity within. Well, that makes sense, right? If the Paramatma is directing us, so why do we suffer? Prabhupada says, that is not very difficult. He always, in the morning walks, he will, Sarup Damodar, Bhakti Sarup Damodar Maharaj is very, ask intelligent questions. So it is another intelligent question. That is not very difficult, Prabhupada says. Government is always with you. But why you are suffering? And why one is enjoying? Government is not partial. You have created your situation to suffer. That's all. Therefore, Krishna says that you surrender to me. I will give you all protection. But you will not do. You must suffer. Suffering is there. As soon as you are disobedient to God, immediately suffering begins. That is Maya. Therefore, Krishna says, now you give up all this nonsense business, surrender to me, I will give you all protection. That you will not do. Then you must suffer. That is the song. Māyayā chacho beshe kacho hobudu bubai. That is our preaching. Sit down. Sit down. That why you are suffering, just accept Krishna, you will become happy. That is our preaching. So long you're under the clutches of, then end. The conversation ends there. Of course, sometimes the tapes, in those days, they use cassette tapes. And to save some money, the tapes, the cassette tapes is very short. Even though let's say, sometimes you hear Prabhupada's lecture, right? Out of a sudden, it's like it ends somewhere. So this is what happens here. So yes, we're always under the Supreme Lord's control. Therefore, one's duty is to surrender. Prabhupada says here. Therefore, one's duty is to surrender. And that is the injunction of the next verse, which later on it will be in text 66, the main message of the Bhagavad-Gita. Sarva-dharmam parityajya mamekam saranam vraja aham tvam sarva-papebhyo mokshayishyami masuchaha. Surrender. Sounds difficult, isn't it? Either you surrender to Maya or you surrender to Krishna. You have to surrender either ways. You cannot be half surrendered to Krishna and half surrendered to Maya. It's not possible. Better 51% to Krishna, at least 1% more to Krishna, then the tendency will increase more and more, surrender. But that is our unfortunate position, Prabhupada says. But you do not want to surrender. That's why you suffer. It's amazing how Prabhupada, so blunt, so precise. That's why you suffer. And those who take advantage of our movement, life is only enjoying. It's only enjoying. Our process is only enjoying. We take Prasad, like, right, Chaitanya? Like Prasad? What's your favorite Prasada? Khichdi? The same as me. I eat khichdi every day. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's favorite Prasad is khichdi. Pakistani khichdi, Pakistani style. Oh, when we say, Maharaj, what is Pakistani style khichdi? They cook the khichdi in the night before, and they'll make it dry, and he will honor the same khichdi the next day. That's Pakistani style khichdi. What's your favorite, Prasad?
Rice and sabji.
Rice and sabji. What kind of sabji?
Bottle gourd, then bitter gourd, potato.
Jai. And paneer? No? I like paneer. We chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we chant the holy names of the Lord, we hear Harikatha, we dance early in the morning. Our life is only enjoying, especially in Vrindavan. Right? You don't have to struggle so hard in Vrindavan. To fight the mind in Vrindavan is easier. If you are out there in the city, it's more difficult. It's like we just came back from Ahobilam, and we have a very nice project. Part of ISKCON Nellore is called Sasyam Dham. Sasyam in Sanskrit, Sasyam means natural living, natural. So there everything is like nice. They grow organic, not organic, better than organic, natural food or products or produce. And it's so shanti, so peaceful. It's like, going back in time. Easy to practice Krishna consciousness. That's why Prabhupada says, simple living, high thinking. So if you live in such condition, it's easier to perform bhakti, to chant Hare Krishna, and of course their Mangal Artik is 5:30, so it's easier to get up also. 5:30 in the morning, yeah, 5:30. But after that, it's like, everything is so nice. Now, who is prepared to live in such a condition? Not everybody. Because it's very austere also. If your mind is chanchala, if your mind is always flickering, no, you'll not be able to stay there. It's like how many can live in Radhakund? You have to be Krishna conscious to live there. If your mind is somewhere else, you just commit more and more aparad, more offenses. So yes, we're very fortunate somehow that we are practicing Krishna consciousness. Somehow, by the mercy of the Supreme Lord and His devotees, then we can come also to the final goal, the conclusion of surrendering unto the Supreme Lord. Okay, we stop here.